Hello you guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad to have you here. I recently posted this video all about breastfeeding, like how to do it, why you should do it, all that good stuff. And I mentioned pumps and pumping and that being a really great adjunct to breastfeeding. But that video was so long, like so long. I needed to cut it off somewhere, and today I'm dedicating a whole video to pumping, the skinny on pumping, what you need to know, why you should be pumping, what gear is worth investing in, how to save yourself some money, and we're gonna get into it. So if you have any questions related to pumping or breastfeeding or just motherhood in general, make sure you leave them down in the comments. Make sure you subscribe to my channel, share this video with a mom that might need it, maybe someone who's going back to work, who's nervous about pumping and doesn't really know how to begin. It is kind of intimidating, and let's jump right in. Okay, so the first question is, why would you want to pump? Like, why do you even need this in your life? And there are a few reasons. The first one is flexibility. You want to be able to give your baby some milk that maybe does not involve you directly. That means dad or partner can feed the baby in the middle of the night. Perhaps you're gonna have your baby at daycare and you need them to feed the baby, or you just want to go out for a night and you need a baby to take a bottle. So it's important that you start to pump to start to build up a stash, which is the next thing. You don't know how long you're going to be able to breastfeed for. Things and life can interfere with that journey, and so you might want to start stocking up on breast milk as soon as possible. And usually in the beginning, right after you have a baby, you have an oversupply of milk while your body is still regulating how much milk you actually need to feed. It's usually giving you enough milk to feed like 5 babies, which is wonderful, but can also become a problem if you don't pump. So you want to be capitalizing on that additional early milk, especially if maybe you're someone who's had a baby before and you realize that you kind of run out of milk once the baby hits a certain age. You might want to start stashing the milk, and just by pumping once a day, you're going to build up a stash really quickly. Also, if you return to work, it's really calming and just reassuring to have a stash of milk ready to go before you start going back to work, because often a big change like returning to work can impact your milk supply, and it'll just really help your anxiety levels if you know that you have a big stash of milk, and if you get stuck at work or you can't pump or something, you have backup. The next thing that I think is super important and is often not really spoken about is preventing engorgement and mastitis. Now, in that previous video that I talked about with breastfeeding, I kind of went into mastitis in quite a lot of detail, so you can go back and look at that. But basically, if you have too much milk, it causes clogged milk ducts, and that can introduce bacteria and infection. And if you've ever had mastitis, you will know it knocks you sideways. It is such a fast developing condition. It's kind of crazy. Now, it's not to say that you can't prevent it. Pumping is one way to do that, and also I speak about some other ways in that video, but it's really important that you pump so that you always feel comfortable. The litmus test for that is that if you touch your boobs, yeah, I'm touching my boobs right now, they should feel nice and soft. They should not feel hard as rocks. If they're feeling hard as rocks, either you need to feed your baby ASAP, or if your baby's sleeping or they've already been fed, or you only fed on one side and the other side really feels engorged, you need to pump. I actually pump still. As with a 4-month-old, I pump every night before bed, because I know that if I don't, I'm gonna wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning with like tennis balls, feeling so uncomfortable. You start to leak everywhere, it's awful. And because my baby, God bless her, doesn't wake up that much during the night, she does sometimes, but not nearly as regularly as my previous children, I don't feed her typically in the night, and I know, it's amazing. But that means that my boobs are like confused and they don't seem to get the whole day-night thing, and they're still producing a lot of milk. So if I pump for 10 minutes before bed, it makes a massive difference to my quality of sleeping, and also prevents my boobs from getting too full, and then therefore prevents me from getting ill with something like mastitis. Another reason to be pumping is that nowadays insurance will actually cover a breast pump for you. So it's really a win-win. You can now get a pump of your choice pretty much free. Some of the more expensive or newer pumps they don't cover them fully, but you can get a really nice basic pump. I'll show you the one that I got through our insurance. For every baby that you have, provided it's a year apart, you can get that, and there's really no reason not to take advantage of that. Okay, I'm going to explain to you all about breast pumps, the ones that I'm familiar with, the pros and cons of each in a second. But in addition to buying a breast pump, you also are going to need a few other things that don't come along with it. So one of those things, very important, depending on the type of pump, but most of them will require some kind of pumping bra. This will make your life a million times easier. Otherwise you'll have to like hold the bottles to your boobs. So this is a pumping bra. It actually comes apart completely over here. You can adjust it. This one is by Simple Wishes, I believe. I will link it down below so you can go check it out. But basically you put it around your body like this, and then you zip it up. So I'll show you. You just zip it up super easily. So one size fits all. It's very flexible, and then it has these little holes like this. And then that's how you put the bottles. They go right in here like this. Like that on each side, and then you have a pumping bra. Very, very important. If you're going to go back to work, I would definitely recommend having two, one for home, one for your work bag. The other thing that you're going to need are milk storage bags. So these are the ones that I've been using the most. These are by Dr. Brown's. That's what they look like. So basically they come like this. They have all the ounce measurements on them, and they have the little date. You want to write that on because you shouldn't be giving baby breast milk that is older than 6 months old, even if it's obviously it's been frozen. So you basically pull that off, and then you open it up and you pour your milk in here. I have used bags that connect directly to the bottle like this, but I feel like they have a much higher likelihood of spilling the milk everywhere, and you really don't want that. So I just like to pour everything into the milk, and I try and not put in more, well, definitely not more than 6 ounces, because that's what the max is, but not more than 5 ounces of milk, and I lay it flat in the freezer, and that's how I freeze it. Something else that you might like, and I definitely would recommend this to new moms, is something called a hugger. Now, this is labeled or marketed as a pump. I personally don't use it as a pump, but I can see, it says on here it's a silicone breast pump. I can see, I mean, I guess if you do this, you will be pumping. I don't find this works as well as like a traditional manual pump, which I'll talk about in a second, but I find this works really well after you've had a baby. You stick it onto the boob that you're not feeding from, and the letdown, which I explained a lot in that breastfeeding video, that uncontrollable impulse for milk to spurt out will get collected in here, and then you can just pour this into your breast milk bag, and boom, you've got some extra breast milk, and you didn't do anything for it. You probably could get 2 ounces, an ounce, and it all adds up, and then at least you have a bottle for your baby by the end of the day without you even having to pump. But in theory you could like suction it on and do that, but that's not how I use it. Okay, let's talk different types of pumps. The most well-known pump, I think, is an electric breast pump. So you would plug it in, where is it? This little power source is right there, okay. And then you plug it in to the wall, which is important because you cannot move around once you're plugged in. It comes with these tubes. This is what creates the suction. You switch it on here, it has a little light. I actually really like this one because it has a little light. This is a Spectra 2, I believe. And this came free with my insurance, along with bottles, but not the pumping bra or any additional things. I'll show you. And then it's super easy. So you have the breast pump plugged into the wall, you're wearing your bra, and you have bottles with the little valves, which are these things, which are very important. Also very important to make sure everything is clicked in very tight, because you need to create a suction system. That's on over here, and then these little tubes connect right here. And once you switch it on, it makes that pumping noise and it sucks the milk, and it does a really good job, I feel. So I would highly recommend getting something like that. I've also used a Medela pump. I used to have a Medela pump that I would leave at work, which I highly recommend you do. And then I have this one at home, and I'll explain why I feel like you need 2 pumps if you are a working mom. And then the nice thing about most of these pumps is that this little bottle right here, it comes with a teat. I would call it a teat in South Africa, but I guess it's a nipple here, but it comes with the lid at the top. It comes with 2 of these, and then you have a bottle. So you don't even need to buy another bottle if you don't want to. My baby does not really drink from a bottle. We don't give her bottles regularly enough. We really should. If I was going to return to work in an office, it would be a different story. I have purchased bottles in the past, but right now I don't have any bottles for her except the bottles that come with the pump. So we are going away in a few days, and I am going to take this pump with me because I feel like it's actually worth me taking a proper pump. I don't want to get sick and I want to have milk for her. If we go out for some reason, then literally I have the bottle, I have the top of it, and she has a bottle. So I don't even need to buy an additional bottle. And if you're someone who doesn't think you're going to need bottles excessively, I would not go and buy them until you actually need them, because any pump that you buy will come with a built-in bottle. The next type of pump that I have is a manual pump. I'm actually not even sure of the name of this one, but I'll put it down below. I know Medela also makes a really nice hand pump, or manual pump as they call. This one was a little cheaper and I didn't really know if I was going to use it or not, so I got this one. This one's pretty easy. Everything kind of comes apart that you can wash. A key tip with washing things is that you want to make sure everything's nice and dry, but we'll talk about that. So this one is just, obviously you can only do one side at a time. I spoke about this in my breastfeeding video, but this is really nice if you're finding baby is just nursing off one side, you want to just relieve a little bit of pressure from the other side. You only want to pump like 1 or 2 ounces of milk. I think this would be good for weaning as well, because you can control how much milk you pump, and it's also not as much cleaning perhaps as the electric one, which has double the amount of sides to clean, right? And it's great for travel, or like in the car or something like that, because it doesn't require any electricity. So I think it's good to have. I've never owned a manual pump until this baby, so I'm just experimenting. I'm trying something new, and yeah, I like it. It's fine. It does its job. The other kind of pump that you get, which I have not had experience in, but I'm intrigued, I would be intrigued to try it, is a wireless or hands-free pump. I have tried a different brand a while ago, but now they have really nice ones. There's like the Freemy, the LV, the Willow is what I've seen, and that goes inside your bra and pumps. My hesitation with those is sometimes they're not as powerful because they're not connected to a power source, but I would be curious to know if anyone's ever used one of those and if they like it or not. I know people do love it and I know people don't like them. So the thing about those wireless pumps is that they're very expensive and insurance doesn't cover them. I feel like they cost about $500 on Amazon. And so it's a big investment if you're not gonna like it, you know, if you're not gonna use it. And I think when I looked it up, my insurance would cover about $350 of that $500. So I'd still be putting in another $150, and I just wasn't sure if it would be worth it for me because I'm not going back to work in an office. If I was, then maybe I would think about that. But for now, this works really well for me. This is my bae. I use her every single day. And I know that's crazy. Let me know if you guys pumped when you had babies. I just feel like for me, I have to. And so now it's a cycle where my body's expecting me to pump, and I can gradually reduce that, I guess, and try and train it a little bit better. But I just like to have the safety of this because I have been hit with almost mastitis too many times, and ain't nobody got time for that. I don't have time to be sick right now, forever. So a big thing that I think we need to talk about is pumping and returning to work. Now, work life has changed dramatically, and a lot of moms are really fortunate to be able to work more from home or work a few days in the office and then some days at home, but not always. In my profession, I'm an occupational therapist. I used to work in a hospital. It is very much, you're there all day, every day. You have to physically be there in person, and you have to leave your baby. So we used to have 2 pumping breaks a day. I like to schedule them sort of every 4 hours. So if you feed your baby in the morning before you leave for work, or you pump in the morning, then you would, let's just say you have a 9 to 5 kind of day, perhaps then you pump at say 11, and then you pump again at say 2 or 3 in the afternoon, something like that. You'd have to work it out what kind of schedule will work for you. I would say you probably need about 30 minutes to set up, depending on your situation. If you have your own office, I did not. I had to run around and find a place, and it was a whole thing. So you need time to get undressed, you need time to wash the pumping parts, you need time to get dressed again, you need actual time to pump. I would say you probably need about 10 minutes to actually be pumping. So that 10 minutes only starts once you switch on that button. So you need to factor that in. I think 30 minutes is a good amount of time. So things that you need. The big question that I always get is, well, how do you sanitize or sterilize the pumping equipment? So all of these things right here. And this all comes apart like this, right? All this. Make sure that you know that it all comes apart, and this too. And the key about keeping your pumping pots clean and hygienic is that they really need to dry properly, because otherwise there's a lot of opportunity for like mold and mildew to, if you can see right there, yeah, can you see that? To grow inside there, and that's yuck. So you can't have that. So the way that I would do it is I would have a pump like this in a pumping bag that would stay at work. So this is the heavy part of it, and I don't want to have to be schlepping that back and forth, right? Then I would have a full set of these, because each pump comes with their own gear, and I would wash them to the best of my ability after I was finished pumping. I don't think we had hot enough water where I was pumping. There was a basin, I was grateful for that, right? Times really need to change, but that's a separate thing. You can also get water-free wipes specifically for pumps that you can kind of have soap in them, and you can kind of just do all that until you're ready to wash it properly. I used to just rinse with water. I used a little bit of like hand soap just to clean it up, and then I would let everything dry on paper towels or like on a towel until I needed to use it again, and then it would dry overnight. I put them on top of my desk. So if anyone watching here used to work with me, you will remember this. The thing that I would do with the milk, because that's another question, is like, well, what do you do with the milk? Because it needs to be refrigerated. So we had a fridge, but it was in like a very inconvenient location when you only have 30 minutes and you have to see patients on either side of that pumping break. It's an issue. So what I recommend is you get little cooler bags that come with certain pumping kits, and then you get like a brick ice block like this. This is actually the original one I had from my Medela pump, and it's nice because the bottles fit right in here like this. And so if you put bottles of milk in here, they would fit. Otherwise, I would use this. I would make sure it's really well sealed. Make sure you hear that clicking, otherwise it's not going to be sealed and you're going to have milk everywhere. And milk from a human is just like milk from any other animal. It's going to stink and smell and get disgusting if you don't wash it properly. So you want to make sure that this is all sealed up. Plus, you don't want to lose one little drop of your liquid gold, right? So you want to make sure that it is all in the bag. So you would put this in a little cooler bag, and then I would keep that, and I would take the little cooler bag home with my milk that was not frozen yet. I would take that home at the end of the day and I would freeze the milk, or I would have it for the next day for my nanny to feed my baby. And that way the milk stayed cold and my pumping pots were clean, because I could also bring home these bottles if I needed to wash them again. But typically, as a rule of thumb, I would bring home all of this pumping gear on a Friday and then run it through the top rack of the dishwasher or in hot soapy water in the sink and give it a really nice clean to be ready to go for Monday. And that's the way that I handled the whole pumping thing, and I did that for years through multiple children, and I never had an issue. And it's kind of what I told all of my colleagues who started having babies after me. That kind of routine kept us sane, because tricking this pumping bag on top of your regular bag, on top of your lunch, on top of whatever else you need for work every single day makes pumping such a chore, and you're not going to want to do it. Even though you feel like you want to give your baby breast milk for as long as possible, it's going to make it so stressful. So I highly recommend, if you're someone that has to work in like another location, you're not at home, you get a second pump, because you need another one at home in case you want to pump at home for your baby, especially if you're going to be leaving your baby. So for me, I would need one to pump at night, but I wouldn't want to be having it back and forth. I want the flexibility. Perhaps I'm not pumping every day at home, but maybe I am. So it's important that you have options to make your work life easier, just like how you have to buy a uniform for work sometimes, or a computer for work sometimes, you need to get a pump. And often, if you've had one baby, you'll get a pump, and if you have a second baby, you'll get another pump. So you'll already have 2 pumps. Another way that you can save money is that if you have a friend who has a baby and they've stopped pumping, they can give you the kind of brain of the pump, the engine of the pump, and then you can buy your own bottles and just replacement parts, and it's much cheaper than buying a whole new pump. And that way you can save money, because you'll have one from your insurance, and then maybe you'll have one from a friend. I know that people are always trying to get rid of their pumps, because what are they going to do with them when they're done having kids and done pumping? So it's pretty easy to find them. Sometimes people get them and don't even use the pump, and they're like giving them away. So you can definitely find a way to save money when it comes to pumping gear and accessories. One last thing when it comes to storing milk, and perhaps if you're someone that has to leave their baby and travel, this might be something to consider. So this is a service that I've never used before. It's called Milkify, never used until now. And we recently relocated from New York City to Austin, and I had so much milk in my freezer. It was intense and I didn't know what to do with it, and I wanted to bring it to Austin. I couldn't bear like throwing it out, and I didn't have time to figure out how to donate it. And I was also just concerned, like, what if I need this milk, right? So I used this service called Milkify, which freeze dries your milk, which is kind of insane and genius, right? So it basically turns your milk into formula, into a powder. So they take every bottle. I gave them like all of these frozen in a container, like an insulated box that they send you, and then they sent me back all of these milk packages from each batch of milk. So they check that your milk is okay, and then they make sure that you are getting your milk. It'll say like how many ounces this was, and then it'll tell you how it's prepared for Julie, and this is 5.2 ounces, so that was one packet, and this one is 6.5 ounces, so that's another bag. This one is 3.7 ounces. It's kind of insane. And then you have all the milk ready to go, and you can store it for a long time because it's like a dry milk powder, and it's so much easier than having a whole freezer full of milk. Because to be honest, we actually bought a second freezer now that we moved to Texas and have the space. Not just for my milk, okay, but I know people that do, but also, I mean, also for other food, but it's definitely helpful because I can move all of my milk to that freezer, and then as we need it, we can steal it from there. So I just wanted to mention that company as an option if you guys are traveling and you don't know what to do with your milk. You can send them your milk, and then they will return it to you in powdered form, and then you don't have to be responsible for it, because traveling with milk is tough. Staying in hotels, I stayed in a hotel which didn't have a freezer. How is it even possible? They had a really cold fridge, but they didn't have a freezer, and I was like, what am I gonna do with my frozen milk? Luckily we weren't there for very long, and we could push all the milk to the back, and it was frozen and it was fine. But oh my goodness, you know, the world is not set up for lactating moms that want to pump and store their milk and all this good stuff. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you got a lot out of that, a lot of useful information. I definitely had experience with pumping and learned some things along the way, let me tell you. Please share this video with someone that might be returning to work or is just looking to build up a supply of milk and might need some tips and tricks when it comes to pumping and gear. I know when I was first looking into it, I was super overwhelmed. I didn't know what was going on, and it would have been really helpful to have a video like this to just know the skinny on pumping and pumping equipment and what everything is and the names of things. It would really have helped me. So please make sure that you subscribe, like this video, turn on your notification bell, and let me know what other videos you'd like to see from me, and I can't wait to see you in my next one. Bye guys.